I'm just coming down from a cold. So if I sound nasally and mannish, that's why. Speaking of which...
Okay, one quick note before we get started. I'm sorry if you can hear my air conditioning thing in the background, but it's 100 degrees in Los Angeles right now, and if I turn it off, I will literally melt. So it's staying on.
Yeah, because we don't want your makeup melting off and showing your true form. You know, nobody fucking wants that.
Anyway, you've probably heard by now that Hollywood has a whitewashing problem when it comes to casting movies and TV shows. But what exactly is whitewashing?
I know, I already did a video on whitewashing, explaining all that shit and how it's stupid and explaining the real definition.
Yeah, I
did that. But this is Riley Dennis we're talking about. And you know, when Riley Dennis brings an issue to everyone's attention, you listen.
Well, if the internet has taught me anything, it's that you can just Google the definition of any word and the first thing that pops up is always 100% correct. So let's see, I'm just gonna look up whitewashing real quick.
That doesn't support my bullshit theory.
That seems more like it. Casting white actors in roles that were written as people of color.
No. No. I've said this before. The definition makes absolutely no fucking sense because there's nothing being erased. If the character's backstory stays the same, if the character is still 100% that race, and it's just a white actor playing him, then that's not whitewashing. Unless you are implying that the casting director had a person of color in mind anyway, and a white actor just bursted in and was like, no, get this Negro out of here.
And I should add that it sucks and is a huge problem. People of color do not get a lot of representation in Hollywood. Think of your favorite Marvel superhero from the current batch of blockbuster movies. It's probably a white dude.
Black Panther was just recently introduced in Civil War, so I think a lot of people would say he's their favorite right now. Because everyone else is pretty much fucking tired. And how come we're not counting television and Netflix and all that? Oh, right, because it ruins your narrative. You know, sorry.
It might even be a white woman. Don't worry, we'll come back to her. There are very few superheroes of color, which sucks for all the people of color out there who want to see themselves represented on the big screen. The media we see can have a huge influence on us, and seeing people who look like us in a wide array of different genres and stories can be immensely validating and encouraging. It tells people that they can be anything or do anything. They're not limited to what they see around them or the stereotypes people have invented for them.
I mean, we're talking about race specifically. So characters like Black Widow and Iron Man, Captain America, Ant-Man, all these people inspire whiteness, right? You can't possibly look up to someone who's a different race from you. It's always got to be the same race, otherwise, oh shit. I don't understand this shit.
And while there are some roles for people of color in Hollywood, they're few and far between, and they're often stereotypical.
Yeah, and they're white characters who are also stereotypical. Rednecks, serial killers, European terrorists, American terrorists, Italian stereotypes, Irish stereotypes, Jewish stereotypes. They're fucking everywhere. But see, the only difference is white people aren't sitting around fucking complaining about stereotypes. You know what white actors do when they're typecast in the same fucking role? They innovate, they change, they grow as actors. They do the work. They suck it up. But you got some actors of color who think they are owed roles because, well, I'm here, ain't I? I'm a fucking actor. I'm a good actor because I told you I'm a good actor. Now, if that sounds like the most arrogant, entitled thing you've ever heard, that's because it fucking is.
White people get to play every main character ever, but Indian people only get to play taxi drivers or convenience store clerks. It plays into the awful public perception that white is the default and everything outside of that is abnormal.
Oh god, the way he words things is so manipulative. No, white is not the default, but it is the majority. Which actually explains why there's not that many people of color in Hollywood. It reflects the society we live in America. In America, a lot of white people, a little bit of POC people. A lot of white actors, a little bit of POC actors. There's no racism in that.
The problem with whitewashing is that it takes one of the few roles that people of color actually have and it hands it to a white person. It looks at the current problem, which is that there aren't enough roles for actors of color, and it takes away one of those roles, which is the opposite of what we should be doing. We should want to advance as a society and move beyond a TV and film industry that is overwhelmingly white. There are so many roles for white actors in Hollywood. It wouldn't hurt to pass the mic and give some of those roles to people of color so that they can have their stories told.
Oh, you mean like affirmative action? No. Like I said earlier in the video, people are not ochish because their pigment is a little darker. That's completely counterproductive to diversity. We're already assuming that white people just get roles because they're white. So why the fuck would we want to do that for people of color? Wouldn't we want to lead by example and do better than that and like earn our shit instead of just taking it from people?
No matter how colorblind you want to claim to be, race has an impact on the way we experience the world.
For example, the only way Riley sees the world is,
come on, nigga, nigga, nigga! Hey, nigga! You like white women?
If we're only telling the stories of white people, we're not getting the full picture of human experiences. In fact, we're just getting a tiny fraction of it, and whitewashing perpetuates that. It continues to erase people of color from our media. If you claim that you're just hiring the best actor when you hire a white person to play a role that should go to a person of color, you're essentially saying that there's not a single actor of color who is good enough for that role. And that just seems insulting.
Isn't that kind of what you're doing too? You're assuming that we have to have things given to us instead of earning it like a white person would. Not based on merit or talent, just based on skin color. Just get it. You are implying that we are inferior. Take off that beanie and get some oxygen flowing to that brain, you horse-faced moron.
There are tons of amazingly talented actors of color out there, and we'll talk more about that later as well. The point is, whitewashing not only takes away jobs from actors of color who barely have any opportunities in the first place, it also erases the tiny bit of representation that people of color have on screen. Like, if you're white, you don't know what it's like to not be represented everywhere.
Hey everybody, America is the only fucking place on the planet. No other continents or countries, primarily POC. I think Riley's reinfecting me.
As white people, we see people who look like us everywhere. We don't know what it's like to grow up without countless movies and TV shows filled with people who look like us. So I don't think you can just tell people of color that it's not a big deal or that they don't need that representation. You don't know what it's like. None of us do.
Most people wouldn't know what that feels like because hinging all of your self-worth, your confidence and all that shit on fictional characters is really fucking unhealthy. And most people, aren't that fucked in the head. So yeah, most people wouldn't know what the fuck that feels like. Yeah, you're right.
And it would be better for all of us to see a bit more diversity in our media. If you only ever see Muslims depicted as terrorists on TV, that might be your impression of all Muslims. But if you grow up watching diverse, complex, well-written stories about a variety of Muslims from different walks of life, you might have a different perception of Muslims in general. Seeing people as more than their stereotypes could only help to make us a better society.
Listen to Riley, kids. If you're going to base your opinions of other races on fictional characters, they have to be written positively, not all negatively, That would be wrong. And you shouldn't have to force diversity just because there's a few morons out there who believe everything they see on television. When your parents told you to turn off the fucking TV and read a book? That's exactly why.
Now, you may have heard about whitewashing in the news recently because Ed Skrein stepped down from his role as Ben Daimio in the upcoming Hellboy reboot. I didn't know anything about Hellboy before this happened, but it was originally a comic book series, and the character that Ed Skrein was going to play is Japanese American in the comic. And Ed Skrein is as white as they come. So he stepped down. To my knowledge, this is the first time a white actor has stepped away from a big mainstream role like this because they didn't want to contribute to Hollywood's whitewashing.
No, it's just because he didn't want to get ass-reamed like the guy who was in Iron Fist. I think that's why he stepped down. But yeah, go ahead.
I can't pretend to know what his intention was or how he actually came to that decision, but regardless, I think this goes to show that talking about whitewashing and calling it out actually does have a real-world effect. It puts pressure on white actors not to accept roles written for people of color. It puts pressure on movie studios not to cast those actors in the first place. Hopefully, this is a tipping point where Hollywood realizes that whitewashing isn't a good business decision, so they stop doing it.
No, they're not gonna stop doing it. Especially since they've already, whitewashed other characters. You might recognize them. Whitewashing characters because they want familiar actors who bring in a lot of money for their movies. Yeah, they done that a few times already,
It sucks that they'll only stop doing it because it's a bad business decision rather than because it's the right thing to do, but it's still changed. All of that being said, seeing everyone bend over backwards to praise Ed Skrein has seemed a little weird to me. Like, yes, he did the right thing, 100%, and I applaud him for that. But I've seen so many people saying that they want to work with him and help him and boost him now. And I understand why that is. They want to show other white actors that turning down these kinds of roles is a good career move. But it still just feels icky.
Such thought-provoking commentary. I don't like this thing because it just feels icky. You're a real pioneer, Riley.
Like, the solution to whitewashing in Hollywood is not to fight over which white actor who turned down a whitewashed role you want to work with. The solution is to work with more people of color. Ed Skrein did the right thing, but it wasn't a brave, groundbreaking, earth-shattering win for social justice. I think this goes to show that talking about whitewashing and calling it out
actually does have a real-world effect.
It puts pressure on white actors not to accept roles written for people of color. It puts pressure on movie studios not to cast those actors in the first place. It was really the bare minimum we should be expecting from white actors. So instead of falling head over heels for a white actor doing what all white actors should be doing, maybe turn your attention to the amazing actors and actresses of color who are already here and doing amazing work.
I thought you said there were barely any and they're not working, and that's why we need to stop whitewashing. Oh my god. Stay consistent in your fucking argument for once. For once?
I asked on Twitter for some actors and actresses of color who you all think are underrated and deserve some more visibility. I asked in particular for folks who are Asian or Asian American because those seem to be the roles that get whitewashed the most. And these are some of the people y'all recommended.
What the Zhang Ziyi. Kelly you know, Sandra
Hollywood really does listen to what is good for business, so we have to show up and support the actors and actresses who we want to see succeed. And conversely, don't support movies or TV shows that whitewash roles meant for people of color. This video is, however, at least kind of side-eyeing all of the actors who accepted roles as characters who were people of color. I'm looking at you, Emma Stone, Tilda Swinton, Finn Jones, Scarlett Johansson, Matt Damon, Nat Wolff, Tom Cruise, Jake Gyllenhaal, and so many others.
Emma Stone's character was biracial, and as we all know, biracial people don't always just look brown. Sometimes they look like one or the other. And in this case, she looks like a white girl. So, see, now at first, I thought this was an actual case of whitewashing. They said the reason for the decision to make the character white, because casting a Chinese actor like Jackie Chan, Russell Long, it would have been disrespectful to the Tibetan government. And that's why we have Tilda Swinton looking like a melon baller in Doctor Strange. Danny Rand, aka Iron Fist, has always been a white boy. Always been a fucking white boy. And if you're complaining that the character should be Asian, you're the one who's racist. American adaptation. An American adaptation is going to have an American actor in it. And America is primarily white. So the chances of a mainstream white actor being in an American adaptation is like 7 to 3. Oh my god, I explained the Matt Damon fucking shit before. He was only brought in by the filmmaker to bring in American audiences. The Great Wall was made in China by Chinese people with a 90% Chinese fucking cast. Yeah, so that's the fucking video. It's Riley Dennis. What else do you need to know? So if you want to whitewash my black ass, share this video.
Smash that like button.
Subscribe, donate, or become a Patreon. That would really help me out. Down the line, I'm still working on that 13 Reasons Why review. I swear to God I am. In addition to 13 Reasons Why, I've been working on a review for episode 1 of The Bold Type and American Horror Story Cult. So, expect those to be out. I don't know when, but they're gonna be out. I swear to God. I'm gonna go cough up a lung now. Bye!